Trauma Therapist Podcast, episode 414. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to help support and inspire new trauma workers through this podcast and my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0. Thanks so much for joining me today, and here we go. All right, guys, I just want to say that I am thrilled to have this podcast sponsored by CPTSD Foundation.org. A little while ago, I actually got to meet the founder, Athena Moberg of CPTSD Foundation. We met here in San Francisco, sat down, had breakfast, and it was amazing. I got to feel and see her passion, the passion that she has for this work, and not just for therapists and clinicians, but survivors as well. CPTSD Foundation provides peer-led support and adjunctive care in between therapy sessions for survivors of complex trauma. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, survivors can come together to give and receive support and validation and feel equipped with the knowledge and skills they can use every day. You can check it out at CPTSD Foundation.org. Their website is amazing. They have daily recovery support. They have free support groups. They have a healing book club. And Trauma Therapist podcast listeners can get 50% off the first month when they join the daily recovery support calls. You can check that out by going to cptsdfoundation.org/trauma therapist podcast. Once again, that's cptsdfoundation.org/trauma therapist podcast. Or just head on over to the website at traumatherapistpodcast.com and click on the link there and you'll be in business. All right, guys, this episode is sponsored by Trauma Therapist 2.0, community to educate, support, to inspire new trauma healers. If you're a new trauma worker, new trauma provider and healer, just starting out on the trauma-informed journey and you're tired of doing this alone and looking for support, looking to be around a community of other passionate trauma clinicians, I invite you to check out Trauma Therapist 2.0 at traumatherapist2.com. That's traumatherapist2.com. All right, guys, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and I am very excited to have Dr. Nancy Morgan back. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you, Guy. So good to be back.
Thank you. So Dr. Nancy Morgan specializes both in working with adults with severe mental health challenges whose traumatic histories influence and inform their thoughts and behaviors, and in providing trauma-focused training and supervision to future therapists. Her primary work has been in partial hospitalization program settings where she served as a clinician, manager, or most often as program clinical supervisor. Currently, Dr. Morgan works as the director of behavioral health at Life Moves, Northern California's largest agency dedicated to breaking the cycle of homelessness, where she developed a trauma-focused, mindfulness-based training curriculum whereby she provides didactics, supervisors, and mentors graduate psychology students. Awesome. So welcome again. Before we get going here, share with our listeners where you're from, where you're calling from, and then let's dive in.
Okay. So for those who've heard the previous interviews, you know that I'm from a little town in Colorado. I always like to name that because I think so much of our upbringing informs so much of our views as adults. And so a very strong connection with nature guided me through my early years. And then I came out west and went to college out here in the Bay Area, UC Santa Cruz, and then stayed in the Bay Area for graduate school. I am currently sitting at my desk at Life Moves, the agency that you mentioned, where I get to run the program I developed, which is a trauma-focused, mindfulness-based 46-week graduate training program, providing supports to the residents that we're serving here who are currently homeless.
Well, all right. Sounds awesome. So let's kind of dive in. Before we kind of scheduled this, I had reached out to you and you shared some kind of exciting things. And you're doing something that not a lot of people are doing. And as a result, not a lot of students are getting the opportunity to learn in that kind of context and setting. So share with our listeners what you're doing, and let's get into it.
Okay. Yeah, it is different. So because I'm working not at a community mental health site, but at a human services agency, that's real focus is on providing the supports necessary, intensive, integrated supports to stabilize individuals. Many of these folks are also families with children, and sometimes two generations of, grandparent, aunts, uncles, people who've been trying to stay intact as families who have, for one reason or another, become homeless. And our goal as an agency is to be able to place these individuals in stable housing. So it's very integrated case management support. But now in this agency, we're now in our 10th year of a graduate training site being developed early on by a woman who really deserves a lot of credit, because she came in and saw that a lot of these families, children, veterans, individuals could really benefit from clinical supports while they were here. Mm-hmm. And if we can help people change their minds or their perceptions or their beliefs, and a lot of them faulty beliefs about themselves, that we can help create different futures. So the program started and developed and sort of morphed into a psychodynamic program. And then when I came in, I'm now in my 4th graduate training year, I really recognized the amount of trauma that was here, and that's always been a part of my background. But I'm also a Vajrayana, a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner for almost the last 20 years. And I recognize the need to take care of ourselves and to be able to recognize, too, differences between perceptions like ultimate and relative realities. And a lot of folks are really suffering right now and really struggling. And if we can come in and develop some of our own mindfulness practices, or if I can support the students developing their own, then I am creating a resource for the students to go in and utilize as they're working with somebody that really helps reduce the amount of countertransference that comes up for a lot of students and helps them deal with some of their own anxiety. And that's also something that if the clients are interested in, the students can teach the clients, and then they have something sustainable to take with them as they go on to their stable housing. Wow. So how I get to do this, how I got to do any of this, is because life moves. We've got about a $20 million a year budget. We're really a large agency covering all of San Mateo and all of Santa Clara County. And we've got probably, 40% of our income is private. And that means that I am fully funded. My program is fully funded by private donors. Mm-hmm. And without the private donors, I really wouldn't have the latitude to do what I'm doing or get to be innovative in the way I'm doing it, because I'm beholden to no one other than people who want to fund this program. And then I'm able to do reports for them at the end about what we're doing and capturing outcomes that show that their money is translating into something that's not only meaningful while clients are here, but possibly meaningful continuing on for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Your description of what the program does and how it educates these incoming graduate students, my reaction was, this sounds amazing, and it also sounds pretty ambitious. I mean, it sounds like ideal almost in a sense. Can you kind of break it down? What does that look like when these students come in? How do you introduce this topic within the context of these clients?
Well, I want to tell you first, I am absolutely an idealist. And in the words of one of my really treasured mentors, Dick Schwartz, he always talks about being a hope merchant. I'm a huge hope merchant. I went to, and this is for me the dream of what our field can embody at its greatest potential in terms of the clinical piece. We can do amazing assessment, we can do amazing research, but this clinical piece of working with individuals and working with ourselves is an area that I feel we're losing. It's becoming corporatized. It's not becoming, it has on so many levels. And I think what we're losing is the ability to really recognize how to develop ourselves in our greatest capacity to do transformational and healing work. So, one, that's my premise, that this work is meaningful, it has value, and it can be done. But we have to do it in different ways, because the first issue is our graduate training. And my first thought, my ideal graduate school program would be to begin immediately working students to develop their own innate qualities that are already in them. A lot of them just lying dormant, waiting for the attention to really value development of qualities like compassion and creativity and caring and the calm that comes from mindfulness. So many of these qualities are really their greatest strengths. And for those of us who've been doing this work a while, we realized that at a certain point, we had to let go of the books and the theories when nothing was working with the client we were with other than to really drop in and really deeply listen and be present with the client. So one, I speak about it. So I'm speaking this afternoon at Palo Alto University. I get to speak with you. This is so great. And, I get to be able to talk about this. My hope is that people will recognize that this is a time for us to innovate. And Adam Grant's wonderful book, Originals, is one I like to refer to individuals, because he really talks about who are the innovators and what is it that they're doing or that we're doing. So I put it out there. The students hear about it from other students. And so when it comes time to do the interviews and the big BAPIC fair, I've set up my table, students come, they express their interest, I have them in for group interviews, and then I have them back for individual interviews. But they already come in pretty much knowing that this is what they're going to get. And for a lot of students, I really have to appreciate them immensely, because they're really conditioned and groomed to have successful careers. And so a lot of them choose to work with the homeless in this environment, instead of going to probably what would be considered more prestigious sites and settings, hospitals, VAs. A lot of them move on from here to their internships and go to VAs and hospitals. But I'm really glad to get them right here early on, because I know no matter where they go, they will have developed some greater awareness than I think they're getting much support in being able to develop. And I know they'll take that with them. So I think I covered most of what you said, Guy, but if I didn't, be back.
Yeah, you did. And to me, again, it's super exciting. And I know I shared this with you last time we spoke, or maybe even both times we spoke previously. When I was in graduate school, I did the exact opposite of what you're teaching. I'd come to school as kind of an older student. I think it was 35, and I I had been in therapy and I got a lot out of it. And I'd been around the block a little, and I kind of thought I kind of had that stuff locked in, dialed in. I didn't need to work on that so much. And consequently, I was like, what book do I need to read? What workshop what do I need to bring into me to become, the trauma therapist I wanted to become? I didn't honor, just as what you were saying, my own compassion, my own creativity. I didn't value that. I didn't understand that is the value, the foundation, the essence of this work. And in addition, exactly what you're saying, I've learned and heard over and over and over again on this podcast from people who've been doing this for years, that's exactly the the gold nugget that these people have come to realize is that they needed to put the book down and open that gate, open that door, open themselves up. And that's not always easy, but that's where, the exchange, the heart, the energy, the foundation can happen. That to me is so exciting. Why is that, or how is that difficult or challenging for a lot of people?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I think it's challenging for graduate training programs because first they're beholden to other regulatory agencies that oversee a lot of how they do. Well, they oversee what they do and how they do it. But again, I think what happens too is I do know some amazing professors, adjunct professors, tenure professors who also maintain a limited private practice because they keep their feet and their heart and their hands and their minds in their deep connections with clients, and they're always growing and always learning. And meanwhile, they're teaching what they need to teach. But I think it can happen that we get locked away into our towers and we forget. I don't know why we don't have graduate school trainings that don't feature numerous clients who come in, people from the community who have utilized years of mental health research, therapy to come in and talk to students about what worked for them and what didn't, just panel discussions of what worked and what didn't. And then also for us to be able to recognize there are diagnoses that carry a lot of stigma, sociopathy, to antisocial personality disorder, a lot of stigma, narcissism, but also borderline personality disorder. A lot of people, I have heard, I don't know any therapists who have said, I don't see borderlines, but I've heard many people say that. And I think that tells me something in you wasn't able to get prepared to do this work because you don't know who walks in your door. It doesn't matter how affluent they are, how educated they are. We don't know about what happened in early childhood around their attachments. We don't know attachment trauma and how it's played out, but we all can see suffering. And when clients can get up, and a whole spectrum of clients could get up, people who just want to volunteer and tell their stories and then share what hurt them in the therapy process and what helped them, I just think that would be the greatest thing ever, and a great opportunity for Q&A with the students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I do just access to that. It's like the nugget, as you say, it's right there. It just, we're walking around it instead of picking it up and realizing how amazingly golden it is.
Mm-hmm. When you talked about, allowing or inviting the graduate students to kind of honor and discover their own creativity and learn the value of it within this work, talk a little bit about how you do that.
Okay.
And even
yeah.
why? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think this is super important. So these are students. This is a training year. They're also working with some of the most traumatized people that we can ever work with. So they need to have really, really good supports in place so they can do this work and develop their own confidence and their competence. So the 46-week curriculum is designed strategically to give them the first 8 weeks of a deep, deep immersion into foundational trainings that this whole program is built upon. First thing, they all get The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. This is what I want them to be informed about trauma. And then I also give them Intro to Internal Family Systems. That's what I gave them this year, just because that is a tool they can use with clients. It was written for the layperson and for clients. So I give them that because they can also start looking at their own systems and develop their own awareness of from an IFS perspective, self and parts awareness. So I start that pretty early, but then they also get their mandatory reporter training. You know, Guy, I was like you. I was in graduate school in my late 30s. I didn't get done till my late 30s. And so from that point on until I came back to the peninsula and took a course offered by San Mateo County Behavioral Health, a course in mandatory reporter training. I had never, ever had training in mandatory reporting. I knew I was one. I had no idea what to do or how to do it. So I thought, well, this is really important. And it turns out quite a few of the students, but not all of them, did receive this training last year, because I take students that are their second year and on. So they have had some exposure. That's for the doctoral students. I have 3 master students that are all art therapy students, and this will be sometimes the first time they've worked with clients. So they get that. We have created in partnership with the Stanford trauma researcher, Dr. Jennifer Keller, a group called BEAR. I've spoken about it. It's Building Empowerment and Resilience. And it is funded by one of our funders that really wants to address the issue of intimate partner violence and how often that connects to homelessness for women and their children. So we created BEAR the first week of our, bless these students' hearts, because the first week of our sort of information session, getting to know you icebreakers, was really short. We had a brief icebreaker, and then we launched right into 5 intensive days of the self-defense component of BEAR. And we got a grant. We've got a body shield, kick shields, mitts, and this amazing Dr. Keller, who's a black belt, comes in and teaches the students. The first thing we teach somebody is to use their voice and to know that they are worth defending. All of this is about, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. All of this is about teaching people that they are worth protecting and getting away from harm. It's not about violence. It's not about aggression. It's getting away from harm to save yourself. So that was basically how the students came this year, was to have a full week. It ended up being one of the most amazing bonding experiences ever. It was a total mystery how this could have been as great as it was, but they suddenly started to get a sense of what this year was going to be like and really what they were going to do in this year. So that was right off the bat. And then we had the amazing Dr. Vilma Reyes, who's up at UCSF, who created the Building Bridges curriculum with us, which is really about supporting parents who have experienced trauma to understand how the legacy burden of trauma and how to be able to work with that and what happened in their own early attachment and how to really look ahead to working with their children, many of whom have experienced trauma, but looking ahead like 20 years, and what would you want your child to say about you 20 years from now in terms of how they felt parented or loved or supported or nurtured. And that's what we start supporting right now. So all of that is how it all gets started. And then we also have a speaker who's coming, Dr. Amy Bassel-Crowe, is coming to work on provide a training on children and trauma. So they're getting a heavy trauma foundation right off the bat. And then it's one week after another where we're just building over and over and over, doing a lot of IFS videos. I really, really appreciate IFS so very much. And then we build more and more into the mindfulness component. And every element of this, the work I do with contracted supervisors, where we're all on the same page. They'll have their unique perspectives, but we're all on the same page about wanting to cultivate the students' qualities within themselves. Then we get to a place where the students are, right now, we have to create a safe container for them to learn, to fall down, to get back up again, to know that this is all part of the process. Over and over, I tell them it's a training year. It's a training year. You're learning. And they start by about January to really find their feet. And then I watch them just go into the remainder of the year, just so prepared and so willing. And then their excitement grows. Right now, they're still anxious.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of doing something wrong. And that's one of the things that we have to work with, which is there is no wrong. You just try. It's like Yoda. There is no try. You just do it. You go out and do it.
That reminds me of when I was previously working at a clinic here in Northern California. We were assessing and treating kids showing early signs of psychosis. And I had come somewhat new out of graduate school. And I remember that one of the supervisors saying, with this population, with these kids, and they were kids we were working with, you've got to be willing to take off your clinical hat. And I looked at him and I was like, this guy nuts? Is this guy nuts? I've just been in graduate school for 4 years learning. I just got it to fit the way I wanted it to fit. Now you're asking me to take this thing off? What are you doing?
Oh, I know.
And that, I never forgot that. And over the course of the 5 years that I was there, I really kind of learned how to do that. And Nancy, it wasn't until, when I was at that position and I was at work one day and my mom died. I got the call. It was crazy. And I had to take off work and had to deal with that. And then I went back to work and I wasn't ready. I got triggered in session with a client. I took off more time. And it wasn't until I went through that process and I came back, I was able to just drop everything and connect with people on a level that I hadn't experienced before.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I can't. It was like you just, all of a sudden your life changed. All of a sudden you didn't need to have the control that you thought you did.
That's it.
In your mother's death, there's no control. All you could do is be present with it, experience your feelings, your grief, your love, your loss. And that's exactly what the clients need us to do with them.
That's exactly it. I don't think I've ever articulated it like that. It was, I didn't need that. There was just trust in, to use a hackneyed phrase, trust in the process, trust in myself, trust in who that person, I didn't have that need for control.
No.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that's such a good place to get to. And sometimes it takes that big kind of life event to get you there, but it's very purifying. I mean, it just distills and you get to the heart of what really does matter. With the students, when we start, we always meet on Wednesdays, 9 to 12:30. We have our component that's basically, I always have a check-in. We have a 2-minute silent meditation. The students may join or not in whatever way they want. I give them a couple prompts about basically allowing any places that might be holding tension, their brows typically, their throat, their chest, their shoulders, to just allow them to relax and roll back. And to take 2 minutes and follow your breath, soft gaze down the end of your nose, eyes closed. For anybody who wants it, it's an invitation. Mm-hmm. Nobody has to do it, but it's to recognize and honor whatever guidance we have internally, externally. I've only begun using these terms in the last couple of years. At 60, I don't mind using them so much anymore. You know, I mean, I'm not afraid of being judged or dismissed because I'll use words like guidance. And I just ask, because if there's anything that will benefit us in our growth and in our delivery of services to clients, of course I want to welcome it. Mm-hmm. And then I always have a check-in. And there are many times the students have said, I needed this so badly this morning, or driving in, I couldn't wait to just get a chance to be here for this 2 minutes and checking in. And by the time, and it's gotten harder, Guy, because we kind of outgrew our space here, and now we're having to meet off-site because I've got 19 students this year. Mm-hmm. And when I started, it was 9. And it takes a while to get all the way around the table. So we have to limit it about 2 minutes per person. And not always everybody's there. We have alumni who are here who are doing their own projects and dissertations, but still it's a much bigger group. But just to take that 2 minutes and identify what's going on with them, we all hear each other, and I'm so struck by some of the major life events they're dealing with. Divorce with their parents, breakups themselves, significant health issues. I am stunned. Every year, it seems like it increases. These are students who are dealing with profoundly serious health issues. And it makes me question the amount of stress anybody is able to carry during a period where they're trying to have relationship, work, school, do all of their assignments. I watch them not only so fatigued and tired, but physically not well. And so I just think, okay, I can at least create this space for them to be present and recognize where they are, because if they didn't, and we just launched into a training, they're carrying all of that. Here right. It can be shared. And a lot of times they're so beautiful. The way that they'll just honor each other. We take a break and I'll just see students connecting with each other. And they're often, many of them don't know each other before this year. They're from different schools. Mm-hmm. And it just always touches me when we create the foundation and we provide the supports and we ensure the safety, the students will grow. Just like a plant. It's just, we build the foundation. The student's nature is to grow. It's very, it's Maslow, it's Rogers, it's that awareness.
What really strikes me about what you've been saying throughout here is how you're honoring the humanness of the clinician within this process. Yeah. How you're focusing on that and really valuing that, because you talked about how much of this work now is becoming corporatized, and it allows one to do anything but that, right? Everything has to be result oriented. But what you're saying here reminds me of something that past guest Peter Bernstein really had to learn the hard way, and he said, what I learned is that we're no different than our clients. Mm-mm. And that's very different than kind of approaching things the way I initially did it, and in a most respectful way I try to, which is I want to learn so that I can help and I can fix, and that's a very different dynamic. But what you're talking about here, it sounds like a real spiritual process.
It is.
It sounds amazing. It really does. 19 people. It sounds like you need to get more people in there.
I have great supervisors assisting me. I couldn't do it without them. Plus, every year, more alumni stay on to do dissertations or special projects or to aid, like in our neuropsych assessments. I just have wonderful alumni who are coming in and doing great work to help me. I could never do it. I mean, it really does take everybody. But I want to jump back, Guy, because one of the things that I remember, I attended the Evolution of Psychotherapy conference last December down in Anaheim. Aaron Beck was video conferenced in. He's there sitting at home in his wheelchair, with his little red bow tie. Mm-hmm. And there are students who really learn. They come in and they really learn a lot about CBT, really strong with CBT. That's their hat. And that's what they learned. And of course they want to try it. So I always say, absolutely. And then if it doesn't work, then I want you to have these other things to fall back on. And so I don't need them to suddenly just take off a hat and be vulnerable. It's like it would never take something away that is the only thing that they might have much confidence in or be really steeped in psychodynamic. You don't see that as much anymore, but we still see it. But the truth, Aaron Beck, I thought, said it so well. He said, we can have manuals, but we can never manualize the therapist. We always have to be the vehicle, the facilitator, the one who is in whatever our theoretical orientation. We are thinking about how to be present and bring forth what is most needed.
Mm.
at that time for the client. And so it's good to learn different theoretical approaches, but I can tell you, I ran to the end of my train with CBT and with psychodynamic. It did get to a different place, and you mentioned the word spiritual. It got to a place where it became much more spiritual. It was people's existential crises. It was feelings of meaninglessness, hopelessness, worthlessness. It was very hard to have them focus too much on their thoughts and the negative results that might come from certain thoughts when they were just trying to do everything they could to hold themselves together. And I see that they took how many buses and they put themselves together the best they could. And they're just there, and of course they're vulnerable. They may have had therapy in the past that didn't help them, that maybe even hurt them, and they're taking a chance. And two things just come to mind. One is now, because of the APA requirement that it went into effect, the students need to have at least one tape session. I encourage them to do more. But I remember at our homeless drop-in site in Palo Alto, one of the students had gotten permission from one client she'd worked with, woman who had just a profound history of trauma. And she said, would you like to be a person that I videotape for my supervision session? And the woman agreed and signed the release. She went to Goodwill. She got herself the best clothes she could. She did her hair. And when the student had set up the computer and then gotten up to walk around and sit, the computer was on record. The client looked in and she was looking at her reflection, and she was composing herself to give the best presentation of herself. That person had been sleeping in the bushes the night before.
Oh my God.
This is the humanity that we're connecting with, that something in her allowed herself to be even more vulnerable, to be seen, but she was going to find a way to be seen in the best possible way. She hadn't given up. There's that hope is there.
Mm-hmm.
So that asks us to be incredibly sensitive and incredibly caring. And I tell the students, the first thing, I love the word spirit. I love it because I love that it comes from Latin spiritus. I love that the first thing we do when we're born is breathe in. The last thing we do in this form is breathe out. And it feels to me like, well, when you're starting with spiritus and you're ending with spiritus, let's just look at this life as being a life full of breath after breath that can inform and nourish us to really look at what our greater capacity is. And if we only look at ourselves as parts without an essence that somehow has healing qualities and perceptive qualities, then we're going to miss a huge part of our potential. And the thing I say to the students is, you don't need to believe me, but check it out. Just try. Just explore it a little bit. So I give them the supports to support it. And then some just go crazy for it. And others are like, okay, that's been helpful. Great. Mm-hmm. But they've got kind of their path.
Right,
So
right.
I just want to support whoever it is doing whatever they're going to do.
So people listening to this, a lot of them are clinicians kind of just starting out on the trauma-informed journey, maybe people who have some experience and now want to become trauma-informed. You only have, 20 people in this program? A couple of things. What would you advise those people who are listening, who are like, this sounds amazing, Nancy only has room for 20 people. Obviously, I'm not going to get in there. Or where would you direct them?
Yeah. Okay. It's such a good question. Guy, I think you and I should I think we should speak at some conferences and go to graduate schools and just talk about a bigger vision and a future vision, and be able to work with some innovative lecturers and professors and graduate students, because I really do think it's the time to envision a healthier, more holistic future for our field. We have an amazing field, but I don't feel we're maximizing our potential and what we can do in it and how it can be used in so many greater ways. So one of the things is, of course, your podcast. So I get to bring it right back to you. Look what you're doing. This was a great support for me when I started listening to your podcasts, because you're bringing so many people in who've had so much experience, and they're speaking from their lived experience. And I think that's huge. The other is we really need to find a way to listen to clients more and do in California what they've done in Oregon for years, which is create a certification process for peer support specialists. Mm-hmm. And that's people with lived experience who then get certified to come in and do work within community mental health settings and residential settings, to be able to be skills trainers, which is a term up in Oregon. I don't know that we've got that here, but to work within the agencies with leadership and with clients to be that bridge. So it's not just two-tiered. I think we need that fluidity and learning from these people who are so amazing in the stories that they have to share about their own journey. So it's thinking about doing things like that in California and in other states, looking at what your states offer in terms of supports for individuals with lived experience. I think, I think people who are teaching in graduate school, if they drop in and really think about, like you've said, what was missing when you got out? Because I had the same thing. I did have a really amazing mentor, and he's still in my life. He's 87 now. And, curiously, he was the one that said to me one day, he said, Nancy, this work is all spiritual. We just don't call it that. Because it was back in the 80s, back in the early 90s. And graduate schools didn't call it that. So I'm calling it that. And I think it just has to continue rippling out. Sort of that drop and rippling out. So talks like this, reading recommendations like you've got. Human services agencies like Life Moves, any human service agency that is relying a lot on private funding can create a program just like this. I am so happy to share how simple a model this is. And one person at 32 hours a week working with some wonderful supervisors can do this work, and we can innovate and we can work with the population directly. They don't need to come to our office anywhere. So if we can just find one little room in a human services agency out of which we can operate, it can be anything. I think that's also a way to sort of take our work out to the streets.
Yeah. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you, Nancy? Because I have a feeling people will want to.
My email, dr.nlmorgan@gmail.com. Okay. And then I've got my website, which is www.drnlmorgan.com. And then my amazing sons are doing a YouTube page for me.
Nice.
Because I've got some videos and trainings that it's really hard to send things over the size. And sometimes we get into complications around technology. So I just thought it'd be so much easier if people could just click on a particular talk or training. Yeah. So that's something that, I thank you for too, because you've acknowledged and allowed me to take some of what we've done together on Trauma Therapist Podcast and be able to showcase it on that YouTube site. It's not up yet. It's probably about 2 months away from being built out.
Okay. Well, I'd love to have that as well as your email address and website on the show notes page here at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Nancy, love it. Love talking to you. Like I said before, what you say is exactly what I want and aspire this podcast to be about. So it's an honor having you on here.
It is an honor being on here, Guy. And there's one last thing, and it just pops. I want to say it. If you haven't had her on yet, the woman whose name I'm forgetting who wrote Trauma Stewardship.
She has been on, and she's coming on again.
Good.
I forget her name. Yeah.
Good.
She's coming back on.
Yeah. So I've been newly acquainted with that book. I feel like it's a book. If I could have written a book, that's the book I would have written.
Yeah.
I love it. And so that is now also a book that I'm recommending to anybody who's doing this work. Another resource to mention.
I'm going to, here it is, just briefly. Laura Vandernoot Lipsky.
Yes.
That's what it is. That's going to get me. All right, Nancy. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
All right, Guy. I wish you a wonderful day.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, I just want to say that I am thrilled to have this podcast sponsored by CPTSD Foundation.org. A little while ago, I actually got to meet the founder, Athena Moberg of CPTSD Foundation. We met here in San Francisco, sat down, had breakfast, and it was amazing. I got to feel and see her passion, the passion that she has for this work, and not just for therapists and clinicians, but survivors as well. CPTSD Foundation provides peer-led support and adjunctive care in between therapy sessions for survivors of complex trauma. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, survivors can come together to give and receive support and validation and feel equipped with the knowledge and skills they can use every day. You can check it out at CPTSDFoundation.org. Their website is amazing. They have daily recovery support. They have free support groups. They have a healing book club. And Trauma Therapist podcast listeners can get 50% off the first month when they join the daily recovery support calls. You can check that out by going to CPTSDFoundation.org/Trauma Therapist podcast. Once again, that's CPTSDFoundation.org/Trauma Therapist podcast. Or just head on over to the website at traumatherapistpodcast.com and click on the link there and you'll be in business. All right, guys, this episode is sponsored by Trauma Therapist 2.0, community to educate, support, to inspire new trauma healers. If you're a new trauma worker, new trauma provider and healer, just starting out on the trauma-informed journey and you're tired of doing this alone and looking for support, looking to be around a community of other passionate trauma clinicians, I invite you to check out Trauma Therapist 2.0 at traumatherapist2.com. That's traumatherapist2.com.